The Outsiders, Day 7. I sat down in a daze. We couldn't get hauled off now. Not after me and Derry had finally got through to each other, and now that the big rumble was coming up and we would settle this social greaser thing once and for all. Not now, when Johnny needed us and Dally was still in the hospital and wouldn't be out for the rumble. No, I said out loud, and Two-Bit, who was scraping the egg off the clock, turned to stare at me. No what? No, they ain't going to put us in a boys' home. Don't worry about it, Steve said, cocksure that he and Soda Pop could handle anything that came up. They don't do things like that to heroes. Where are Soda and Superman? That was as far as he got, because Derry, shaved and dressed, came in behind Steve and lifted him up off the floor, then dropped him. We all called Derry Superman or Muscles at one time or another, but one time Steve made the mistake of referring to him as all brawn and no brain, and Derry almost shattered Steve's jaw. Steve didn't call him that again, but Derry never forgave him. Derry has never really gotten over not going to college. That was the only time I've ever seen Soda mad at Steve, although Soda attaches no importance to education. School bored him. No action. Soda came running in. Where's that blue shirt I washed yesterday? He took a swig of chocolate milk out of the container. Hate to tell you, buddy, Steve said, still flat on the floor, but you have to wear clothes to work. There's a law or something. Oh, yeah? Soda said. Where's those wheat jeans, too? I ironed. They're in my closet, Derry said. Hurry up, you're going to be late. Soda ran back, muttering, I'm hurrying. Steve followed him, and in a second there was the general racket of a pillow fight. I absent-mindedly watched Derry as he searched the icebox for chocolate cake. Derry, I said suddenly, did you know about the juvenile court? Without turning to look at me, he said evenly, yeah, the cops told me last night. I knew then that he realized we might get separated. I didn't want to worry him any more, but I said, I had one of those dreams last night, the one I can't ever remember. Derry spun around to face me, genuine fear on his face. What? I had a nightmare the night of Mom and Dad's funeral. I'd had nightmares and wild dreams every once in a while when I was little, but nothing like this one. I woke up screaming bloody murder, and I never could remember what it was that had scared me. It scared Soda Pop and Derry almost as bad as it scared me. For night after night, for weeks on end, I would dream this dream and wake up in a cold sweater screaming. And I never could remember exactly what happened in it. Soda began sleeping with me, and it stopped recurring so often. But it happens often enough for Derry to take me to the doctor. The doctor said I had too much imagination. He had a simple cure, too. Study harder, read more, draw more, and play football more. After a hard game of football and 4 or 5 hours of reading, I was too exhausted, mentally and physical, to dream anything. But Derry never got over it, and every once in a while he would ask me if I ever dreamed any more. Was it very bad? Two-Bit questioned. He knew the whole story, and having never dreamed about anything but blondes, he was interested. No, I lied. I had awakened in a cold sweat and shivering, but Soda was dead to the world. I had just wiggled closer to him and stayed awake for a couple of hours, trembling under his arm. That dream always scared the heck out of me. Derry started to say something, but before he could begin, Soda Pop and Steve came in. You know what? Soda Pop said to no one in particular. When we stop the Sochies, good, me and Steve here are going to throw a big party and everybody can get stoned. Then we'll go chase the Sochies clear to Mexico. Where are you going to get the dough, little man? Derry had found the cake and was handing out pieces. I'll think of something, Soda Pop assured in between bites. You going to take Sandy to the party? I asked just to be saying something. Instant silence. I looked around. What's the deal? Soda Pop was staring at his feet, but his ears were reddening. No, she went to live with her grandmother in Florida. How come? Look, Steve said, surprisingly angry. Does he have to draw you a picture? It was either that or get married, and her parents almost hit the roof at the idea of marrying a 16-year-old kid. 17, Soda said softly. I'll be 17 in a couple of weeks. Oh, I said, embarrassed. Soda was no innocent. I had been in on bowl sessions, and his bragging was as loud as anyone's, but never about Sandy. Not ever about Sandy. I remembered how her blue eyes had glowed when she looked at him, and I was sorry for her. There was a heavy silence. Then Derry said, We'd better get on to work, Pepsi-Cola. Derry rarely called Soda by Dad's pet nickname for him, but he did so then because he knew how miserable Soda Pop was about Sandy. I hate to leave you here by yourself, Pony Boy, Derry said slowly. Maybe I ought to take the day off. I've stayed by my lonesome before. You can't afford a day off. Yeah, but you just got back, and I really ought to stay. I'll babysit it, Two-Bit said, ducking as I took a swing at him. I haven't got anything better to do. Why don't you get a job? Steve said. Ever consider working for a living? Work? Two-Bit was aghast. And ruin my rep? I wouldn't be babysitting the kid here if I knew some day some good day nursery open on Saturdays. I pulled his chair over backward and jumped on him, but he had me down in a second. I was kind of short on wind. I've got to cut out smoking, or I won't make track next year. Holler, Uncle. Nope, I said, struggling, but I didn't have my usual strength. Derry was pulling on his jacket. You two do up the dishes. You can go to the movies if you want to before you go see Dally and Johnny. He paused for a second, watching Two-Bit squash the heck out of me. Two-Bit, lay off. He ain't looking so good. Ponyboy, you take a couple of aspirins and go easy. You smoke more than a pack today, and I'll skin you. Understood? Yeah, I said, getting to my feet. You carry more than one bundle of roofing at a time today, and me and Soda'll skin you. Understood? He grinned at me. Grinned one of his rare grins. Yeah, see you all this afternoon. Bye, I said. I heard our Ford's vroom and thought, Soda's driving, and they left. Anyway, I was walking around downtown and started to take this shortcut through an alley. Two-Bit was telling me about one of his many exploits while we did the dishes. While I did the dishes. He was sitting on the cabinet sharpening that black-handled switchblade he was so proud of. And I ran into 3 guys. I says, howdy, and they just look at each other. Then one says, we would jump you, but since you're as slick as us, we figure you don't have nothing worth taking. I says, buddy, that's the truth, and went right on. Moral, what's the safest thing to be when one is met by a gang of social outcasts in an alley? A judo expert, I suggested. No, another social outcast, Two-Bit yelped, and nearly fell off the cabinet from laughing so hard. I had to grin too. He saw things straight and made them into something funny. We're going to clean up the house, I said. The reporters or police or somebody might come by. In any way, it's time for those guys from the state to come by and check up on us. This house ain't messy. You ought to see my house. I have. And if you had the sense of a billy goat, you'd try to help around your place instead of bumming around. Shoot, kid. If I ever did that, my mom would die of shock. I liked Two-Bit's mother. She had the same good humor and easygoing ways that he did. She wasn't lazy like him, but she let him get away with murder. I don't know, though. It's just about impossible to get mad at him. When we had finished, I pulled on Dally's brown leather jacket. The back was burned black, and we started for 10th Street. I would drive us, Two-Bit said as we walked up the street trying to thumb a ride, but the brakes are out of my car. Almost killed me and Kathy the other night. He flipped the collar of his black leather jacket up to serve as a windbreak while he lit a cigarette. You ought to see Kathy's brother. Now there's a hood. He's so greasy he glides when he walks. He goes to the barber for an oil change, not a haircut. I would have laughed, but I had a terrific headache. We stopped at the Tasty Freeze to buy Cokes and rest up, and the blue Mustang that had been trailing us for 8 blocks pulled in. I almost decided to run, and Two-Bit must have guessed this, for he shook his head ever so slightly and tossed me a cigarette. As I lit up, the socials who had jumped Johnny and me at the park hopped out of the Mustang. I recognized Randy Anderson, Marsh's boyfriend, and the tall guy that had almost drowned me. I hated them. It was their fault Bob was dead, their fault Johnny was dying, their fault Soda and I might get put in a boys' home. I hated them as bitterly and as contemptuously as Dally Winston hated. Two-Bit put an elbow on my shoulder and leaned against me, dragging on a cigarette. You know the rules, no jazz before the rumble, he said at the socials. We know, Randy said. He looked at me. Come here, I want to talk to you. I glanced at Two-Bit. He shrugged. I followed Randy over to his car, out of earshot of the rest. We sat there in his car for a second, silent. Golly, that was the toughest car I've ever been in. I read about you in the paper, Randy said finally. How come? I don't know. Maybe I felt like playing the hero. I wouldn't have. I would have let those kids burn to death. You might not have. You might have done the same thing. Randy pulled out a cigarette and pressed in the car lighter. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I would never have believed a greaser could pull something like that. Greaser didn't have anything to do with it. My buddy over there wouldn't have done it. Maybe you would have done the same thing. Maybe a friend of yours wouldn't have. It's the individual. I'm not going to show at the Rumble tonight, Randy said slowly. I took a good look at him. He was 17 or so, but he was already old, like Dallas was old. Cherry had said her friends were too cool to feel anything, and yet she could remember watching sunsets. Randy was supposed to be too cool to feel anything, and yet there was pain in his eyes. I'm sick of all this, sick and tired. Bob was a good guy. He was the best buddy a guy ever had. I mean, he was a good fighter and tough and everything, but he was a real person, too. You dig? I nodded. He's dead. His mother has had a nervous breakdown. They spoiled him rotten. I mean, most parents would be proud of a kid like that, good-looking and smart and everything, but they gave in to him all the time. He kept trying to make someone say no, and they never did. They never did. That was what he wanted, for somebody to tell him no, to have somebody lay down the law, set the limits, give him something solid to stand on. That's what we all want, really. One time, Randy tried to grin, but I could tell he was close to tears. One time he came home drunker than anything. He thought sure they were going to raise the roof. You know what they did? They thought it was something they'd done. They thought it was their fault. That they'd failed him and driven him to it or something. They took all the blame and didn't do anything to him. If his old man had just belted him, just once, he might still be alive. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I couldn't tell anyone else. My friends, they think I was off my rocker or turning soft. Maybe I am. I just know that I'm sick of this whole mess. That kid, your buddy, the one that got burned, he might die? Yeah, I said, trying not to think about Johnny. And tonight, people get hurt in rumbles, maybe killed. I'm sick of it because it doesn't do any good. You can't win. You know that, don't you? And when I remained silent, he went on, You can't win, even if you whip us. You'll still be where you were before, at the bottom, and we'll still be the lucky ones with all the breaks. So it doesn't do any good, the fighting and the killing. It doesn't prove a thing. We'll forget it if you win, and if you don't. Or if you don't. Greasers will still be greasers, and Socs will still be Socs. Sometimes I think it's the ones in the middle that are really the lucky stiffs. He took a deep breath. So I'd fight if I thought it'd do any good. I think I'm going to leave town, take my little old Mustang and all the dough I can carry and get out. Running away won't help. Oh, hell, I know it, Randy Hoff sobbed. But what can I do? I'm marked chicken if I punk out at the Rumble, and I'd hate myself if I didn't. I don't know what to do. I'd help you if I could, I said. I remembered Cherry's voice. Things are rough all over. I knew then what she meant. He looked at me. No, you wouldn't. I'm a Soc. You get a little money, and the whole world hates you. No, I said, you hate the whole world. He just looked at me. From the way he looked, he could have been 10 years older than he was. I got out of the car. You would have saved those kids if you had been there, I said. You'd have saved them the same as we did. Thanks, Grease, he said, trying to grin. Then he stopped. I didn't mean that. I meant, thanks, kid. My name's Ponyboy, I said. Nice talking to you, Randy. I walked over to Two-Bit, and Randy honked for his friends to come and get into the car. What'd he want? Two-Bit asked. What'd Mr. Super Soc have to say? He ain't a Soc, I said. He's just a guy. He just wanted to talk. You want to see a movie before we go see Johnny in Dallas? Nope, I said, lighting up another weed. I still had a headache, but I felt better. Socs were just guys, after all. Things were rough all over, but it was better that way. That way you could tell the other guy was human too. Chapter 8. The nurses wouldn't let us see Johnny. He was in critical condition. No visitors, but Two-Bit wouldn't take no for an answer. That was his buddy in there, and he aimed to see him. We both begged and pleaded, but we were getting nowhere until the doctor found out what was going on. Let them go in, he said to the nurse. He's been asking for them. It can't hurt now. Two-Bit didn't notice the expression in his voice. It's true, I thought numbly. He is dying. We went in, practically on tiptoe, because the quietness of the hospital scared us. Johnny was lying still, and his eyes closed. But when Two-Bit said, Hey, Johnny kid, he opened them and looked at us, trying to grin. Hey, y'all. The nurse, who was pulling the shades open, smiled and said, So he can talk after all. Two-Bit looked around. They treating you okay, kid? Don't, Johnny gasped. Don't let me put enough grease on my hair. Don't talk, Two-Bit said, pulling up a chair. Just listen. We'll bring you some hair grease next time. We're having the big Rumble tonight. Johnny's huge black eyes widened a little, but he didn't say anything. It's too bad you and Dally can't be in it. It's the first big Rumble we've had, not counting the time we whipped Shepard's outfit. He came by, Johnny said. Tim Shepard? Johnny nodded. Came to see Dally. Tim and Dallas had always been buddies. Did you know you got your name in the paper for being a hero? Johnny almost grinned as he nodded. Tough enough, he managed, and by the way his eyes were glowing, I figured Southern gentlemen had nothing on Johnny Cade. I could see that even a few words were tiring him out. He was as pale as a pillow and looked awful. Two-Bit pretended not to notice. You want anything besides hair grease, kid? Johnny barely nodded. The book, he looked at me. Can you get another one? Two-Bit looked at me too. I hadn't told him about Gone with the Wind. He wants a copy of Gone with the Wind so I can read it to him, I explained. You want to run down to the drugstore and get one? Okay, Two-Bit said cheerfully. Don't y'all run off. I sat down in Two-Bit's chair and tried to think of something to say. Dally's going to be okay, I said finally. And Derry and me, we're okay now. I knew Johnny understood what I meant. We had always been close buddies, and those lonely days in the church strengthened our friendship. He tried to smile again, and then suddenly went white and closed his eyes tight. Johnny, I said alarmed, are you okay? He nodded, keeping his eyes closed. Yeah, it just hurts sometimes. Usually don't. I can't feel anything below the middle of my back. He lay breathing heavily for a moment. I'm pretty bad off, ain't I, Pony? You'll be okay, I said with fake cheerfulness. You gotta be. We couldn't get along without you. The truth of that last statement hit me. We couldn't get along without him. We needed Johnny as much as he needed the gang, and for the same reason. I won't be able to walk again, Johnny started, then faltered. Not even on crutches. Busted my back. You'll be okay, I repeated firmly. Don't start crying. I commanded myself. Don't start crying. You'll scare Johnny. You want to know something, Pony Boy? I'm scared stiff. I used to talk about killing myself. He drew a quivering breath. I don't want to die now. It ain't long enough. 16 years ain't long enough. I wouldn't mind it so much if there wasn't so much stuff I ain't done yet, and so many things I ain't seen. It's not fair. You know what? That time we were in Windricksville was the only time I've been away from our neighborhood. You ain't gonna die, I said, trying to hold my voice down. And don't get juiced up, because the doc won't let us see you no more if you do. 16 years on the streets, and you can learn a lot, but all the wrong things. Not the things you want to learn. 16 years on the streets, and you see a lot, but all the wrong sights, not the sights you want to see. Johnny closed his eyes and rested quietly for a minute. Years of living on the east side teaches you how to shut off your emotions. If you didn't, you would explode. You learn to cool it. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Johnny, she said quietly, your mother's here to see you. Johnny opened his eyes. At first they were wide with surprise. Then they darkened. I don't want to see her, he said firmly. She's your mother. I said I don't want to see her. His voice was rising. She's probably come to tell me about all the trouble I'm causing her and about how glad her and the old man will be when I'm dead. Well, tell her to leave me alone, for once. His voice broke off. For once, just to leave me alone. He was struggling to sit up, but he suddenly gasped, went whiter than the pillowcase, and passed out cold. The nurse hurried me out the door. I was afraid of something like this if he saw anyone. I ran into Two-Bit, who was coming in. You can't see him now, the nurse said to Two-Bit, so Two-Bit handed her the book. Make sure he can see it when he comes around. She took it and closed the door behind her. Two-Bit stood and looked at the door a long time. I wish it was any one of us except Johnny, he said, and his voice was serious for once. We could all get along without anyone but Johnny. Turning abruptly, he said, let's go see Dallas. As we walked out into the hall, we saw Johnny's mother. I knew her. She was a little woman with straight black hair and big black eyes like Johnny's, but that was as far as the resemblance went. Johnny Cake's eyes were fearful and sensitive. Her eyes were cheap and hard. As we passed her, she was saying, but I have a right to see him. He's my son. After all the trouble his father and I have gone to raise him, this is our reward? He'd rather see those no-count hoodlums than his own folks? She saw us and gave us such a look of hatred that I almost backed up. It was your fault, always running around in the middle of the night getting jailed and heaven knows what else. I thought she was going to cuss us out. I really did. Two-Bit's eyes got narrow, and I was afraid he was going to start something. I don't like to hear women get sworn at, even if they deserve it. No wonder he hates your guts, Two-Bit snapped. He was going to tell her off real good, but I shoved him along. I felt sick. No wonder Johnny didn't want to see her. No wonder he stayed overnight at Two-Bit's or at our house and slept in the vacant lot in good weather. I remembered my mother, beautiful and golden, like soda, and wise and firm, like dairy. Oh, Lordy, there was a catch in Two-Bit's voice, and he was closer to tears than I'd ever seen him. He has to live with that? We hurried to the elevator to get to the next floor. I hoped the nurse would have enough sense not to let Johnny's mother see him. It would kill him. Dally was arguing with one of the nurses when we came in. He grinned at us. Man, am I glad to see you. These hospital people won't let me smoke, and I want out. We sat down, grinning at each other. Dally was his usual mean, ornery self. He was okay. Shepard came by to see me a while ago. That's what Johnny said. What do you want? Said he saw my picture in the paper and couldn't believe it didn't have wanted, dead or alive, under it. He mostly came to rub it in about the rumble. Man, I hate not being in that. Only last week, Tim Shepard had cracked 3 of Dally's ribs. But Dally and Tim Shepard had always been buddies. No matter how they fought, they were 2 of a kind, and they knew it. Dally was grinning at me. Kid, you scared the devil out of me the other day. I thought I'd killed you. Me? I said, puzzled. Why? When you jumped out of the church, I meant to hit you just hard enough to knock you down and put out the fire. But when you dropped like a ton of lead, I thought I'd aimed too high and broke your neck. He thought for a minute. I'm glad I didn't, though. I'll bet, I said with a grin. I never liked Dally, but then for the first time I felt like he was my buddy, and all because he was glad he hadn't killed me. Dally looked out the window. He sounded very casual. How's the kid? We just left him, Two-Bit said, and I could tell that He was debating whether to tell Daly the truth or not. I don't know about stuff like this, but, well, he seemed pretty bad to me. He passed out cold before we left him. Daly's jawline went white as he swore between clenched teeth. Two-Bit, you still got that fancy black-handled switch? Yeah? Give it here. Two-Bit reached into his back pocket for his prized possession. It was a jet-handled switchblade 10 inches long that would flash open at a mere breath. It was the reward of 2 hours of walking aimlessly around a hardware store to divert suspicion. He kept it razor sharp. As far as I knew, he had never pulled it on anyone. He used his plain pocket knife when he needed a blade, but it was his showpiece, his pride and joy. Every time he ran into a new hood, he pulled it out and showed off with it. Daly knew how much that knife meant to Two-Bit, and if he needed a blade bad enough to ask for it, well, he needed a blade. That was all there was to it. Two-Bit handed it over to Daly without a moment's hesitation. We got to win that fight tonight, Daly said. His voice was hard. We got to get even with the Socs. For Johnny. He put the switch under his pillow and lay back, staring at the ceiling. We left. We knew better than to talk to Daly when his eyes were blazing and he was in a mood like that. We decided to catch a bus home. I just didn't feel much like walking or trying to hitch a ride. Two-Bit left me sitting on the bench at the bus stop while he went to a gas station to buy some cigarettes. I was kind of sick to my stomach and sort of groggy. I was nearly asleep when I felt someone's hand on my forehead. I almost jumped out of my skin. Two-Bit was looking down at me worriedly. You feel okay? You're awful hot. I'm all right, I said when he looked at me as if he didn't believe me. I got a little panicky. Don't tell Derry, okay? Come on, Two-Bit. Be a buddy. I'll be well by tonight. I'll take a bunch of aspirins. All right, Two-Bit said reluctantly, but Derry will kill me if you're really sick and go ahead and fight anyway. I'm okay, I said, getting a little angry, and if you keep your mouth shut, Derry won't know a thing. You know something? Two-Bit said as we were riding home on the bus. You'd think you could get away with murder, living with your big brother and all, but Derry's stricter with you than your folks were, ain't he? Yeah, I said, but they'd raised 2 boys before me. Derry hasn't. You know, the only thing that keeps Derry from being a Soc is us. I know, I said. I'd known it for a long time. In spite of not having much money, the only reason Derry couldn't be a Soc was us. The gang. Me and Soda. Derry was too smart to be a greaser. I don't know how I knew. I just did. And I was kind of sorry.